What's up guys, Lawrencium here, and today we're taking a look at the Motherlode, the newest dungeon in Battle for Azeroth, being included in the Battle for Azeroth Alpha. This dungeon is the supposed Kazan/Undermine dungeon that was announced at BlizzCon and has been floating around the database for quite some time, so today we're going to be taking a look at it. This does use the Lost Isles map as an asset, so it could change in later builds, but I mean, I kind of like it. It kind of reminds me of Kazan, so we'll see how it goes. So we get started on the beach of Kazan, supposedly, and then we enter this place called Crapopolis. Yes, you've heard me right, Crapopolis. I didn't think Blizzard would ever name a city such as that. Crapopolis, really. So when you get into Crapopolis, you deal with a bunch of mech jockeys, peacekeepers, thugs, bunch of goblins sprouting off ideas about Kaja-Cola. You know, they're drinking Kaja-Cola and they're just thinking about ideas like, you know, transblafication, you know, terrible ideas, and, you know, bards and everything. Just dumb ideas, dumb ideas. So, you kill all these mobs, you know, it takes like about, it took us like 10 or 15 minutes to get through them. And you get to the first boss, which is the coin-operated crowd pummeler, which is a goblin-made machine, which is operated by coins, of course. So the mechanics for this fight are pretty easy. You know, they're pretty simple. You know, you have to kick foot bombs into the boss, make sure, you know, he takes more damage, and, you know, you avoid the shocking claw. That's pretty simple, right? I mean, you just gotta aim the foot bomb there. You know, I didn't have any problems with this fight. Basically, the foot bomb will go off if you don't kick it, and you'll take like 15% damage, but, you know, the boss, if you kick it towards the boss, then he'll take like 50% damage per foot bomb kicked into him. So in total, he'll take like 150% damage, and that should be easy, right? I mean, it is normal mode, so anything could change, and it could be a little bit different on mythic mode and heroic mode, so we'll see. So after you defeat the first boss, you'll continue on, and you'll be dealing with a lot of bomb-lobbing trash mobs and earth rippers. You know, you'll see some Azerite drill extractors along the way. You'll see this is an entire strip mine where, you know, the goblins are fracking for Azerite in the ground. So it doesn't work out very well for them, as you can see, because you can see there's a bunch of Azerite elementals that are sprouting up on the hillside, and once you go through them, you know, you'll get to the second boss, which we'll get to in a little bit. So basically, some of these mobs, like the Earth Rippers, they have an Earth Shield. You can spell steal off of that or interrupt that. You basically got to avoid bombs, you know, because, like, the bomb lobbers, they're gonna drop bombs everywhere, and, you know, once they explode, you'll take a bunch of damage there. Then you get up to the hillside, and you're gonna be dealing with Azerite elementals, which they do like this wide AoE thing, and you can stun them or disorient them. You can't interrupt them naturally, you gotta stun them and disorient them. So moving on, we got the second boss here, Azeroth, who is a big Azerite elemental summoned by the Goblins, obviously, and, you know, he's pretty pissed off, and we gotta deal with him. So what we can do is you gotta kill all these mobs here, and, you know, surrounding Azeroth, and, you know, they're part of the fight, and they're gonna be doing a lot of, you know, mechanics. They're the real threat for the fight, not Azeroth. So what we're going to do is, we have these fracking totems, right? And what we're going to do with these fracking totems is we drop them, and then they get stunned whenever they're in range of the fracking totem. Now, the Earth Ragers, they use Resonant Pulse, which is commanded by Azeroth. They'll also chase you, so you're going to have to kite them, and they will be infused with Azerite, and that makes them deal a lot of damage, but take more damage. So you got to blow them up and destroy them, and then you'll focus your attacks on Azeroth. It's a pretty simple fight, so, you know, nothing to worry about there. You just gotta kill the mobs, kill the boss, go on to the mobs, go on to the boss. Make sure you stun the mobs, because they're gonna use Resonant Pulse, which is that wide AoE that we saw earlier. So we're done with the second boss, and we're halfway done with the dungeon. So what we do now is we're gonna take this cart, go through the minefield, and then get to the third pack, which is quite a clusterfuck, if I say so myself. It is a very tough, just very, 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 very tough trash pack to go through. And luckily, I had a really great group for this, so I had no issues there. I mean, we might have died like a couple of times, but, you know, nothing to worry about there. So basically, we're dealing with a few trash mobs here. So, for example, we have the Alchemist, who can polymorph you into ooze, and, you know, that can be interrupted. We got the Assistants, who will turn themselves into, like, these little mutants, and these mutants deal a lot of damage, and they're pretty shitty to deal with. You got the Weapons Tester, you know, who will do, like, a frontal cone silence, so casters, you gotta beware. Then you have the Mastermind, who is, oh god, Mastermind is just pure AIDS, and in this fucking dungeon. So the Mastermind, what the Mastermind does is that they'll use these leech orbs, and when they throw leech orbs, they'll heal back up, and that basically takes a lot of time away from you, and they'll do a lot of damage. They'll like use a beam or something, and they can't be polymorph, they can't be stunned. They're tough to manage. So now that you've gotten through all that terrible trash, now you're gonna have to deal with the third boss, which is Rizza Flux Flame. Basically, the Rizza Flux Flame fight is basically a race against time. So what she does is that she'll spray Azerite onto the floor, and it'll just stay there forever. So basically, you gotta kite her way around the arena, which is, not too bad, not too big, not too small. You just gotta kite around, little circular pattern, and, make sure that you don't step into any Azerite or step outside the arena, because the Azerite is basically just, it's poison to you, and you're gonna take a lot of damage. It's basically like lava. And then what she'll do, she'll use Chemical Burn, which is an interruptible cast, and the main ability you need to look out for, besides the Azerite on the floor, is the Propellant Knockback. Or the Propellant Blast, rather, which is a frontal cone knockback, and it deals a lot of damage if you're not in the cone. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to avoid the frontal cone, stay as far away as possible, stand behind her, or whatever. It's very important that you do not die during this, because it's a race against time, and you are going to have a lot of problems trying to get this boss down on Mythic Plus. And so you finally killed Rizza Flux Flame, and now you're onto the final trash pack, which is a giant minefield. So basically, this minefield, the gimmick for this minefield is that if you get close to a crawler mine, it'll crawl towards you and explode, dealing massive amounts of damage. And then you got your basic trash mobs, like you got your ordnance specialists, your technicians, your war machines. You got goblins wearing jetpacks. So basically, it's nothing too noteworthy, and it's pretty easy to go through this trash mob. And then you get to the final boss, which is Mogu Razdunk, the leader of the Venture Company. So the Mogu Razdunk fight is a two-phase encounter, and the first mechanic you're going to have to deal with is the homing missile. So what that does is that it'll target a random player in the group, and that person has to get it out of the group to make sure he takes the damage and not the rest of the group. Then there's another mechanic. It's called the Gatling Missile, and what that does, it's basically like the pew-pew laser mechanic from Ulduar, the Mimron encounter, and he'll basically spin around in a circle, firing his gun and just like firing away and everything, and just if you're caught into that, you're probably gonna die. So you gotta avoid that and you just like run around and everything. He's pretty quick about it, so you just gotta be very careful. So now that you've dealt with all of those mechanics, he'll move on to phase 2 at 50%, which is the air phase. So what he does is that he'll drop 3 rockets onto the ground, summon a bunch of adds. You gotta deal with those adds, and then he'll target a random player with Drill Drop. What this drill drop does is that he'll target someone, you have to lead the drill into the rockets, that way he'll crack the shield and it'll get rid of one of the rockets. You'll take a little bit of damage because the rocket will explode, so basically do this 2 more times and then you're back into phase 1. All you gotta do is rinse and repeat with the homing missile and the Gatling gun, and then you're basically done with the fight. It's pretty simple. And then after that, I mean, we didn't get any loot in this instance, but what we did is we took Razdunk's ride and crashed it into traffic and just fell off, and we're back at the beginning of the instance. All in all, I think this was a really cool instance to go through, pretty different from your standard dark and spooky cavern dungeons that we saw in past expansions. I definitely like the aesthetic and just the goblin themed for this entire instance. I definitely think it's, one of my favorites out there for Battle for Azeroth. So there's going to be a lot more dungeons to test in future builds, so look out for that. And as always, stay hungry, stay foolish, and be awesome. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.